at Central Michigan, when do you kind of notice that, hey, I have these skills, I'm going to try to go in business for myself, and here's what I'm going to do? Like, when was the moment that started for you?
So it was when I was at Central Michigan. I actually had shoulder surgery 3 times, and the first one I moved out to California in the summer, and I was interning while I was out there trying to make money. And the guy that I
Where in
was
California,
interning
like
for,
Los Angeles, or?
I was staying in Hermosa Beach on someone's couch, but I was in Long Beach interning. And then it was for this guy, and no one really knew who he was at the time. And then he ended up like blowing up that summer. And he's CT Fletcher, the I command you to grow. He's like yeah.
Influencer,
So
yeah,
it was
gotcha,
him.
gotcha.
And then I was with him summers just because I like working with him. And then when I was after my senior year season at Central Michigan, I was supposed to graduate, and I was calling a bunch of people for jobs, and like I knew I didn't want to like work basically at an Equinox or LA Fitness ever. And I was watching American Sniper, and I found out who trained Bradley Cooper for it. So I tried reaching out, but there was no number. So I ended up calling the yoga instructor in the studio, and then I sent her my resume and said I want an internship. And they called me back like 1 week before I was supposed to graduate and take my final exams. And I ended up flying out, missing my final exams, and I got the job and started that week. And I lived actually in like South Central for 6 months while I was interning. And then I was by luck or just walking by this gym called Unbreakable, and interned there for 2 months as well. So I was doing two different places.
Yep.
Ended up getting a full-time job there, and then after about a year, I wanted to do my own thing. So started my own thing from there, and now I'm just pretty much branching out. So like I'm starting wellness centers.
Cool.
Started out in my house. So basically an athlete or an actor will come live with me, and they have like a chef or a masseuse or whatever they need in the gyms in the house when they get ready for roles or off season. And I worked out, so I'm actually going to try it in different countries like Switzerland and Costa Rica and everything. So that's the next step for that.
Gotcha. So yeah, when you started getting, you ride bulls, you do all this other stuff, you played football. I mean, what about those experiences sort of, have come into your worldview now in terms of like how you're training people or how you're setting up these wellness centers? Like, what learnings did you get from those experiences of playing sports, playing team sports, bull riding, like kind of, more extreme sport? What kind of things do you what are kind of the pillars of what you teach and what you believe in terms of when you're taking this, ideology to wellness centers, or when you're training somebody? What are sort of the things you believe in from those experiences?
So the biggest correlation between like sports and business, or sports and pretty much anything, is the competition.
Yeah.
And the self-motivation. So you're not going to be great at any sport if you're not motivated or competitive. And that's the same idea behind business.
Yeah.
And that's why I pretty much take out of anything from football to bull riding. Like the bull riding more so just because football, you have to rely on the 98 other guys on the roster, when it's not really realistic unless you're like whatever at a Fortune 500 company and you have to rely on everyone else.
Yep.
But in my case, it's more so on me. So bull riding definitely is more about like focus and no distractions and self-motivation more so than anything.
Yeah, totally. And so when you kind of started you were interning at these gyms. You kind of started branching on your own. What was the first thing you did in terms of like how did you start your business? Did you rent a space, or what were the steps you took to sort of take your vision and start going down the road with it?
I was living in a beach motel at the time.
Which one?
And Sea Sprite.
Sea Sprite.
Yeah, so to put this in perspective, the room was 300 square feet, and I lived with another person, and I had a dog there too. So like, it was 300 square feet on the beach, and it was mostly used for like adult films that I found out later. So like, that's where I was living. And I didn't have really money to rent out space, so I used the beach since that's where I was at.
Yeah.
So I used the beach, and then really sort of like that platform to get clients was all referral based. So I knew that if I would just work with the athletes I knew, and the people that I knew, that over time that was going to work out. So I ended up staying there for like 6 or 7 months, and then things started working out from there. But yeah, it was just, you got to start off somewhere low, and then you just like trust in the process. And like every dollar that I got, I ended up investing in myself, whether it's with cameras or whatever. So that's pretty much the biggest thing when you start. It's going to suck, and you're going to have to miss meals and eat ramen noodles and live in beach motels. But if you invest the money that you make in yourself, it's definitely going to pay out in the long run.
Yep, totally. And so, you've kind of then, it seems like, you're pretty young still. You're like, what, 25, 26? Yeah,
I'm 25.
25. So it kind of accelerated. What was maybe like, was there a moment or like a specific day, moment, session that kind of like really, allowed your career to take off? You've trained athletes, you're training these big actors, you work with Peter Berg, who's, is connected to all of this shit. Like, was there a moment that you can, remember and you think about that was sort of like, this is when it really kicked off?
Yeah. I was 22 at the time, so it was about 3 years ago. And I got an email from this lady, and I thought it was fake, but I kept looking at it, and I was like, maybe it's true, but maybe it's also like a buddy fucking with me.
Yeah.
So I was getting an email, and it was from Jennifer Aniston, and it was like wanting to train, and I was 22 at the time. I thought it was fake, and I was just like, whatever. And I ended up taking it, and I had to do like all this stuff freehand, and I was like, oh, this might be real.
Yeah.
So that was like, that it's the only time I've really just been like, oh, and everything, and she's been amazing. So, and she was the nicest person ever. So it was just great.
How did she find you? Did you work with somebody that she knew, or you don't know?
I rarely know how people find me. I never really ask. And so I have no idea. But yeah, that was pretty cool, especially since I was so young at the time. And then recently it's been cool, just trying to, like, I never realized how Instagram's like a powerful tool for like endorsements and marketing and everything.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a joke, and I mean I still kind of do, but
it's like a platform, but it's like well, again, we'll go down the road with that anyway.
Yeah. It's a good platform.
Yeah.
If you're original to yourself. I met a lot of people that aren't what their Instagram sees. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
What? How are you driving a Rolls Royce but live in a studio apartment?
Yeah.
But so branching in that, I've never worked with a brand or partnership. Like, I've never signed with Nike or Adidas or really anything, just because um, I've never got anything until recently, but I always wanted like products that like I truly believe in, or just let me do whatever I want to do. And I started getting big into CBD. So I saw this company that made CBD waters, and this was about 2 years ago. And its name is Hemp Hydrate, and it's the only company like I ever really pursued, just
Right.
because I was like,
you're a fan of their product, right? Yeah,
I was a really big fan, and they just let me do everything that I wanted to do, and I truly believe in like the product working. So we partnered up to open up the wellness center, and like all the gym is branded Hemp Hydrate and has the fridge and free waters, and it's just been amazing. Like working with like a company that lets you do pretty much whatever you envision.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, just like only really a couple more questions. Thanks again for your time, man. Yeah, you kind of mentioned something about sort of like Instagram and sort of like being cautious about what you're watching on there, what you're looking at. You don't really seek out motivational speakers. Like as somebody who's kind of using Instagram as a way to sort of build your business, what are some things to sort of like if you're a young entrepreneur, like what are some things to kind of watch out for, and why don't you really react to that, and what are the things you kind of see as maybe like red flags or at least indicators for like, hey, this is noise versus this is real. How do you kind of stay balanced, and what do you do? Is there anything you do specifically?
It's I mean,
like what about a motivational Instagram is most irritating to you, and like what do you prefer?
This is my whole thing on motivational speakers. First off, respect to people that do it,
of course,
because they're making money and everything. So congrats to them on finding that niche.
Yeah.
But here's my problem with it. All they're doing is saying things that people already innately know about themselves. And they might be adding expletives, or they might be adding whatever to make it original. But if you listen to the base, like just the core of it, it comes down to one thing, and it's self-motivation.
Yeah.
And not everyone is meant to be great, but not everyone is meant to be famous, and not everyone is meant to be the CEO of a large company. They're supposed to be but everyone can be great at their own job, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And it's the false illusion that like you're just gonna wake up and be great, because at the end of the day, if I tell you something or someone else tells you something about how to be great or how to be motivated, that goes in 1 year and out the other, whether it's 1 week, whether it's 1 day, or whether it's even a month at the longest. But the only thing that can sustain like a hardworking person is self-motivation.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, if someone needs to tell you to get up out of bed an hour early and do better for you or do better for anyone else, then honestly, you're not going to do great things in life. It's just like, it's all about you. And like, I'm obviously not going to, I can motivate someone for a minute, but it's never going to last.
Right.
And that's my whole thing on it, is people's stories can inspire you, like everything like that. But it comes down to like what's in between your own ears, not anybody else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of like the thing that I've always seen, like the two threads that I always see are just like hard work, undefeated. Like you gotta like bust your ass, and it sucks. Like it sucks a lot of the time. Like it's gonna suck. Like, but you gotta just like work, and then it's sort of like it's like everything in life. It's just
the point.
Yeah. It's
some people like. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like you're the only person that can motivate yourself. Like, So on a Navy SEAL basis.
Yeah.
So they did a psychological study on Navy SEALs on who passed Hell Week. and it's one of the hardest tests known to any person.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to break you mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. And the only thing that they found that's common in the people that passed Hell Week is that those people wanted to be a SEAL more than anything else. And it wasn't their background, it wasn't anything. And
right.
it's true. It's completely true. And I know people that went in it because they were inspired that their brother died or their mother was passing and they wanted to do something great, but they didn't pass Hell Week because that wasn't all they wanted to do. So it's just it's self-motivation more than anything. Like, if you're doing it for someone else, it's never going to last. I mean, you can get to that point, but it's never going to push you past. And that's what I feel like. I don't want to listen to someone else telling me that I need to do this and this. I'm going to figure it out on my own, and because they're not going to be next to me holding my hand at,
Yeah, totally. It's just you.
So,
yeah, no, I think, I mean, that's spot on. That's how I feel. Yeah, I guess my real last question, and something I kind of like ask people that we're doing these with, is just sort of like, where do you go for information? Like, who do you follow? What do you follow? What are some good resources for, hey, I want to get into personal training, or I want to get into sort of like building a brand on Instagram that's like, through me. What are some things that you find important? What are resources that you use and would advise others to use and consult, whether it's like a YouTube channel or a book or whatever,
Yeah, so it's mostly just like being original to who you are is what people find the most appealing. So it doesn't matter like if you're bad at dancing, but you post dancing videos because that's what you do in your free time. Like, people dig that, and it's like, I'll be the first one to tell you that, like, with training and everything, I didn't go to school for it because I took one kinesiology class and I was like, this is way too fucking hard. And I was no, I'm gonna graduate with the easiest degree I can find, and it was entrepreneurship. So that's what I ended up doing. But my methods aren't anything you really learn in a book. It was all things that I've learned through working with myself. So I get results in a quick amount of time, and even though might not be a popular opinion, or I've never learned anything from a book, basically it comes down to this. I rather learn from someone that's been in a fight and lost than learn from someone that's read it in a book. And I think that because with my clients, whatever, they are comfortable with me, and I get to do talk shit and be competitive, and they're all pretty close to me. That's what you need to find. I love what I do, so it really shows through other people. So with building your brand, it has to be all about originality. If I see someone's videos and then I meet them in person, they're completely opposite. Even if it's a pastor, I've seen pastor videos on Instagram, and I met him in person and had a couple beers with him in a different conversation. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Totally. I'm not going to trust that guy.
Yeah. Totally.
So it all comes down to who you are, and no one cares. I wear Crocs and cut off sweatpants, shorts. No one cares if you're a nerd or whatever you do. As long as you are who you are, then that's the biggest key to building your brand.